Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the McFarlane Spawn Medieval Spawn. This is the Kickstarter version, and I signed up for the deluxe pack with all three variations. Now, McFarlane has done a Medieval Spawn before, but this is going to be something else, something greatly detailed, a really special release. I backed the Kickstarter, I don't know, 6 months ago, something like that. And they finally arrived today. I had no shipping notification. Bam, it's just at the door. So let's take a look at the packaging, which is really just the Medieval Spawn face on the front. We have the green package here. You can see the sort of shiny, not exactly holographic Medieval Spawn collectible action figure. Not much going on the side. Other side, Medieval Spawn, and the back is completely blank. Of course, it's going to be the same thing on the other versions, just done in red and done in silver. The packaging is fantastic. There's an outer sleeve. Go ahead and remove that. And then you can see sort of sword going into the Spawn logo. It has even like a little sort of ribbon so you can open it up. And on the inside, we have the actual Spawn figure. Here's a little certificate of authenticity. There's Spawn himself. We have shield, all kind of different weapons and different interchangeable pieces. There's an autographed thing by Todd McFarlane himself. Nice, cool little display piece. The packaging is pretty much the same as the previous Kickstarter Spawn, so it's bringing back a lot of memories opening this up. That was a very special release, and so is this. So with no further ado, let's open it up. So here's a look at the figures out of their sort of deluxe packaging. We have all three of them, and they're in clamshell packaging, kind of reminiscent of the original Spawn line. We have three different versions. We have the classic blue version, the bold black version, and the sassy silver prototype. Let's go ahead and get them out of the boxes. Alright, now that we have these figures out of the package, here they are with all their accessories laid out, and they come with a ton of cool stuff. We have a ton of weapons, shields, interchangeable armor pieces, heads, helmets, display stand, comic book, tons of stuff. In this video, we're going to take a look at each of the figures individually. We'll check out their accessories, height, and articulation. They each come with the same accessories. Some are painted a little bit different, so I don't necessarily have to go over all the accessories with each of the figures. They're going to be the same height, same articulation, same accessories. We'll go ahead and start off with the main one. This is going to be the blue version of Medieval Spawn, and boy is it a very nice figure. So before we take a look at the Medieval Spawn, let's check out some of the sort of neutral accessories. And we have, starting off, this little sort of nameplate autographed by Todd McFarlane himself. It's a pretty cool little nice piece you can put on your desk. I'm probably going to put it on my bookshelf. And then we have these three different comics. This is a copy of Medieval Spawn, and they're all different cover variants. Blue, green, and black and white. Now they're in sort of a protective sleeve. It's cardboard on the back, a little sleeve at the front, and you can pretty easily pull the comic out, check it out, and it's an actual Spawn comic, Medieval Spawn. Looks pretty damn cool. These will definitely go onto my comic shelf. And then, of course, they all have display stands. A little bit larger than a typical McFarlane display stand, but it's a little bit of a larger deluxe figure. It's got a couple peg holes for the pegs of his feet. Medieval Spawn, pretty thin and basic. So here's the look at the main blue version of Medieval Spawn. He comes with a ton of accessories. 2 shields, tons and tons of weapons, swords, axes, different kind of blades. It looks like he has, what is that, 5 alternate heads? 6, I guess, if you count the one on him. Different armor pieces for his chest, for his arms, for his legs, a couple of maces, decked out with accessories. Let's take a closer look at the figure. Now, this is something special, very well done. You can see the sort of chainmail underneath everything. Great texturing and makes perfect sense. It's exactly what it would be like, having that layer with armor on top. Face looks great. Green eyes, textured suit underneath the armor pieces, and then armor on top. The big signature spawn collar, spikes on his arms. Now this is not the Al Simmons spawn. This medieval spawn, another Hell spawn from way back in the day. Little skulls on the chains across there. Excellent, excellent detailing. Now a lot of the armor pieces are done with magnets. As you can see there, just sort of fits right on. But at the same time, makes it kind of easy to knock off as well. His shins are, I guess, not done the same way. I thought there were armor pieces on there. But just look at the texture on this thing. It looks really good. Paint job, very well done. Another sort of skull logo on his belt. Another one on the side there. It does look like we have double jointed elbows. Double jointed knees. Cape flowing in the wind. A place to sort of stash or holster a sword. A nice sheath on the back. Now the shoulder armors, they don't come off the same way. They're sort of pegged in there. Just look at the detailing all over this guy. Fantastic. Even on the cape. I mean, look at that design. And it's sculpted. It's not just simply sort of drawn on there. But man, look at the sculpt all over this guy. Very, very impressive. And a closer look at his face and head sculpt, which I think is quite impressive, especially the texturing on the chainmail, which is under the armor, and it just all looks so good together. And then, here's the figure, broken down as far as he can go, with all of his removable parts detached. Now let's check out his accessories. And let's start off with his hands. He has a total of 4 different hands, 2 left hands, and 2 right hands. And he has so many accessories and interchangeable parts, and there is a such thing as too many interchangeable parts. I don't know, we'll see as we go through this. Here he is with his first pair of hands. This is a pair of gripping hands. And here's his second pair of hands. His right hand is a gripping hand. It also has sort of a pointing finger. And his left hand is a semi-open hand. Could be a grabbing or throwing hand. I'm actually surprised he didn't come with more hands, like some fists, etc. Now let's look at his heads, and he has a ton of them. I count 6 heads, but they're not all necessarily heads. Some are heads, some are helmets to go on top of heads, some are heads with helmets on them, etc. Here's a look at his first head. This is the main head that people are probably going to use with this figure. This one has the chainmail underneath and the sort of spawn mask or helmet on top. Here's a look at one of the unmasked heads. Similar to Al Simmons, it's burnt up. Kind of disgusting. He's got green eyes. And his other unmasked head, this one is also burnt and disgusting, and this one has a mouth open like he's screaming. So here's a look at this sort of rubbery type helmet on top of the unmasked head. Fits good. Looks good. A lot of time when you have a helmet that goes on top of a head, it's way too big and bulky. They did a pretty damn nice job with this thing. And then here is one of his heads that has a helmet attached, and it almost looks like sort of a Roman guard. Has that large hair mohawk thing at the top. And here's his last head. This one has a helmet attached to the head, but you can take the front and it's sort of hinged. You can raise it up, expose his unmasked head. Really, really cool option here. Now for his forearm armor pieces. The 2 on the left are a little bit more medieval, and the 2 on the right are a little bit more sort of Spawn-esque, a little more like the modern Spawn. Here he is with his first forearm armor pieces. These are the more medieval looking ones. And then his alternate armor pieces. These look a little bit more what I'm used to seeing on a Spawn. I'm not going to lie, I'm not a huge fan of these forearm armor pieces. They just kind of come off too easily as you're moving the figure around, trying to adjust things, they fall off, put them back on, etc. I mean, it is sort of clever with the magnet, and the magnet's fairly strong, but, you know, you're moving them around, especially this one, it feels like you can just sort of knock it off fairly easily, but, yeah, you can put it right back on, just a little bit annoying. Now he has a couple different clasps that hold his cape and armor together. The one on the left have skulls, the one on the right sort of Spawn logos. Here's the first set of clasps. These have the skulls on them. And then his second set of clasps. These have the Spawn logos. And then we have different chest armor pieces. He has 3 alternate versions. One has sort of some of the blue color on it. One has a skull in the middle. One is a little more basic and bland. Here he is with his first armor piece. This one matches the rest of his outfit pretty nicely. Here's one of his alternate chest armor pieces. This one that has the gold skull in the middle. And his third armor piece. This one doesn't really have a spawn or skull logo. Mostly just sort of gold and silver. Now let's look at his shields. He has two of them. This one is done in sort of a diamond shape. Looks maybe a little more medieval. Has a skull on the top. Tons and tons of sculpting detail. The spawn logo at the bottom. Sculpt and paint job are just excellent on these shields. And then we have the circular one, which is a little more traditional spawn looking, but it's like old school wood with some steel sort of nailed in there. Green eyes. Here's Spawn holding his first shield. He has to take the armor off his forearm and his hand off to sort of fit it into the little straps that will hold it onto him. And here he is with the second shield. Now personally, the way they have the straps attached, I almost feel like they could have put them on differently. Force his arm to go in this way, and then if you want to hold his arm straight, the logo will be sideways. I kind of wish the straps were flipped. That way he could just put his arm through and hold it like this, instead of having to sort of have his arms in there and sort of twist it around. Now let's look at his swords and bladed weapons. So we have this enormous sword, which has such a cool blade. Look at all the skulls, all the sculpting detail, jagged edges, etc. Pretty nice looking handle as well. Then we have a little bit more of a traditional sword. We got kind of a little skull thing going on. Now the bottom of these things actually come apart, which I think is nice. That way you don't risk breaking them. When I first opened out of the pack, I thought I'd broken a couple of these things. But the sculpting detail is fantastic and has a great paint job to match. And then we have this other blade. I don't know what this thing is called, but it looks pretty cool. Here's Spawn holding that enormous sword. And then holding his more or less normal looking sword. And then here's Spawn holstering that sword on his back. And then here holding his other bladed weapon. And then we have his axes. He has two of them. First one here is a little bit smaller. The blade looks fantastic. It's got the skull in the middle. Great sculpting detail. Great paint job. Even has a sort of Spawn logo at the bottom with a spiked base. And then we have this larger axe, which also has a skull in the middle. Much larger blade. You can see there's like wings coming out onto the blade and looks great. Here's Medieval Spawn holding that large axe, which you can hold with either one hand or with two. And then here, holding that smaller axe. And finally, we have a couple of these maces. This one has a sort of standard handle, big, large, spiked top. And then we have this sort of ball and chain version, which is really cool. Spiked ball with a chain attached to this base. Here's Spawn holding that mace. And then holding that ball and chain. Then I wanted to take a quick look at each of these three versions of the Medieval Spawn. We have the black version, the blue version, and the silver version. So this is one we've been looking at for pretty much this entire video. It's got the blue chainmail and a ton of armor on top. And it looks great. And then we have this version, which is pretty much the same thing, except it has black chainmail underneath and all the armor on top. The armor looks to be mostly the same color. And there are a little bit of differences here and there, but the main difference is going to be the blue chainmail versus the black. And then we have this silver armored version, which looks pretty cool. Kind of gives me Silver Samurai vibes. Originally, this was supposed to be an unpainted artist proof figure, but they changed it to a metallic silver, and personally, I like that, although I'm sure there are some people that are disappointed with that. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at the figure and his accessories, let's check out his height. From bottom to the top of his head, standing about 7.2 inches tall, which can translate to a little over 18 centimeters. And for his articulation. Starting with his head, of course, he can rotate side to side. He can look up and down a very good amount. Can tilt his head from one side to the other. His armor is articulated on a ball joint. It can rotate around. You can move it with the sort of butterfly ring thing, and it goes up and down. So I imagine it can pop off. I'm not really trying to do that, but you can move out of the way depending on how you want to pose the figure. Shoulders on a ball joint goes out about 90 degrees. Up, down, around. He's got this butterfly ring between his shoulder and chest, increasing the range of motion and covering the large gap that would be there. Bicep cut. He's got double jointed elbows, but some of the armor is kind of getting in the way, so let's move out of the way. Move that thing. Let's go and just take this off for now. And the elbow should go in more, but I'm not really getting it to. It looks like it's sort of just hitting on itself at that point. But it definitely is double jointed. I can see both the top and the bottom. His wrist can rotate, and it's hinged as well. In his torso, he has a ball joint. Rotate around, forward and back. Another one in his waist. Rotate around, forward and back. Between the two, it's a little bit limited, but he's got just so much going on, so many parts that are sort of blocking things. Legs complete with splits, McFarlane style hip joints. Rotation is non-existent. They go forward. Really not that much. Back, not at all. Double jointed knees. And his ankle. Forward and back. Rotation. Tilt, rock, at least a little bit. Although this bulky armor piece is sort of obstructing some of that. So, forward and back, rotate, tilt rock, at least a little bit, and toe articulation. Here's a look at this medieval spawn under moonlight in the graveyard. And here's a look at all three versions of medieval spawn under moonlight in the graveyard. Now let's check them out. Next is with our action figures, starting off with some of their spawn figures. Here are all three of those medieval Kickstarter spawn figures. We have the black version, the blue version, and the silver version. And here he is, next to the regular release of the medieval spawn. It is like night and day compared to these two guys. And there's a significant price difference as well. And here he is, next to the original Kickstarter spawn. Now these are two completely different type of campaigns. The original Kickstarter spawn was McFarlane sort of testing the waters to see if people were interested in a modern 7-inch scale spawn line. And they damn sure were. I think that was like one of the highest Kickstarters ever. He made millions of dollars, people pledging for that spawn. And the articulation was a little bit subpar compared to the modern offerings, but not by much. It sort of paved the way for the modern spawn line, and hell, even maybe the modern DC line. And this newer one was a campaign just to make a super ultra deluxe version of the medieval spawn, and it also blew their goals out of the water. And then here are all three versions of the medieval Kickstarter spawn, next to all three versions of the original Kickstarter spawn. Both badass releases. And now let's check them out next to some of my favorite modern spawn figures. Here he is, next to the Mortal Kombat 11 spawn. When this first came out, sold out like crazy, and just sort of showed the demand for a 7-inch fully articulated modern spawn line. And here he is, next to the Mortal Kombat 11 Shadow of Spawn figure. Then, next to the Throne spawn. This one came with a throne, and is a fantastic spawn release, except he only has half a cape, which is such a dumb decision. I understand it lets him sit in the throne, but he should have had one cape like this, and an alternate full cape. And now, with the Batman vs. Spawn 2-pack spawn, this is probably my favorite regular spawn. I like the original Kickstarter a little better because the cape is just magnificent, but this is probably their best normal 7-inch spawn. Here he is, next to the high school or proto spawn. And finally, next to the most recent McFarlane spawn figures. These are their Call of Duty spawn figures. Now let's check them out. Next to some action figures from different various companies, so we can see how he fits in, both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know what signs you can mix him with. Since he's a McFarlane toy, they're typically the 7-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the large action figure lines I collect. They work way smaller. But first, let's check him out with some of his McFarlane Toys brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figure lines, all from McFarlane Toys, all 7-inch scale. And now, with some Jack-specific wrestling figures and some Diamond Select toys. Here's Medieval Spawn next to a bag of Doritos. And here he is with some DC Direct and NECA figures. Then, with both some Mattel and Jazzwares wrestling figures. And now, with some Mezco and Mattel DC figures. Next, with some Mafex and Hasbro Marvel Legends. And finally, with some SH Figure Arts and Jazzwares Fortnite figures. So overall, this is a fantastic medieval Spawn figure. Here would be my complaints. There's a little bit too much going on. The forearm armor pieces fall off kind of easily. Little clamps where this cape and chest armor, they can come out. You gotta sort of pop them back in. Not easily, but if you're messing with him, that stuff can come out and be, frankly, just kind of annoying. Beyond that, the figure is fantastic. His hands could be a little bit tighter to grip his swords. They kind of, sort of dangle there a little bit. And you can mess with them, adjust them. The sculpt, the paint job is just fantastic. The amount of accessories is out of this world. But I don't really need all those different looks. Like the chest armor, I'm only going to use the main piece. There's, like I said, a little bit too much going on, and there's sometimes too many different interchangeable parts, some of which I'll probably never use. But I understand there's a lot of people that are going to be pleased with how many different looks and different things you can do with this guy, and it is cool. But like I said, there's a little bit too much going on, which can be sort of a negative and a positive at the same time. Sculpted paint job, excellent. Articulation, it's very good, but not great. Accessories are amazing. If I were to rate this guy, even with a couple of the minor annoying issues, I'd give him a very solid 8 out of 10. And maybe I'm underrating him, but there are just a couple things that were bothering me while doing this video, and it's not like they're going to get better over time. And if you're going to store this guy in any sort of capacity besides putting him on the shelf, you're going to have to take off some of the pieces so they don't get lost. But it is a really, really nice figure. Great shelf presence. Looks fantastic. So this is D Hunter. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say to the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.